Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures. And today we're doing part 54 of our Jurassic World Evolution 2 mod spotlights, where we take a look at some of the wonderful mods people have been making and compare them to their real life fossil counterparts. So today we haven't got any new species, but we've got a lot of interesting cosmetic and paleo edits. So we're going to get into the first pack. Is done by HawkL1215. Everyone loves HawkL. You know, he's done the feathered cosmetic pack and really done a lot of really interesting packs that I've really liked. So this time he's gone and made a Stegosaur pack. So this is a new cosmetic that adds a bunch of different cosmetics to all the different Stegosaurs in the game. I've already covered, even though it's included in this pack, I've already covered the two Stegosaur species he's done. Which is Ungulatus and Stenops. So I've already done those. But this is coming the rest of the Stegosaurs, and Huangasaurus has two species, so it's really exciting to get stuck on that. But one thing that you need to have before you download this pack, this extended, you need the expanded colors, because that can cause issues, because a lot of these Stegosaur cosmetics are based on the expanded colors, so you will need to download that. Of course, I'll put that in the description, of course. I just wanted to give that PSA in case people go, oh, why is it not working? It's because you need the expanded colors pack or core thing. I'll put it in the description so you guys will be able to download it from there and be able to enjoy all these Stegosaurs. So we're going to be starting off, we've gone down in alphabetical order from the Stegosaurs. So we're going to be starting off with Chunkingasaurus. So now this has come out rather awesomely. Let's have a look at this guy. I love the green color on this one. So here's our Chunkingasaurus. So we can start off with the changes of the head. We can see that head's been made quite a bit bigger. We actually know Chunkingasaurus is pretty much known from a humerus, a couple of plates on its back, the radius on the tibia, fibula, and things like that from the back leg and parts of the skull. So we actually know quite a bit about how the skull looked on this guy, because he's got quite a big boxy skull, which I really love that. And the neck's actually made a little bit longer, which looks really nice. It also looks like he's got a bit of a tummy tuck. You see much big round body, and we can see those feet are actually correct. You can see the three toes, and the other two don't have any digits. And they always has like very horseshoe or very big pads on the bottom of their feet there. It was really nice. I really love these colors. I think this green one really came out nicely. We can see the big legs there with the correct feet. So this is pretty much spot on for what we know of Chunkingasaurus. We can see Chunkingasaurus has got these very interesting plates. From what we know, very much like a triangle. So it very much comes out like that, not like the big round plates that you see in like Stegosaurus. Since these guys, I believe, are actually more in the kind of own group of basal stegosaurs from Asia. I believe that's where these guys are closer related to, like huangasaurus, as we cover. Be a really cool animal. And then we can see the six thagomizers. That's really cool, and then, two stick out to the forward like that. But yeah, really spot on. I really love this guy. Definitely a big fan. And just these colors. I love the pattern on this guy. Love that big stripe down the middle, especially on this green one. This green one just sticks out to me so much. But there's all sorts of wonderful colors. Definitely a really awesome animal. So that one, again, done by HawkL1215. So it's our first Stegosaur. This episode, PSA, is going to probably be a little quicker because we're just going to be covering cosmetics at the moment. So next up, we've got another cool Asian Stegosaur. We have got Spinosaurus. So, of course, we've got Spinosaurus, another cool Asian Stegosaur. And this one's a little bit better known. We have pretty much the full like arm and shoulder parts of it. We've got a lot of the spine, especially around like the head and through the obviously body. Got pretty much full legs up to the metacarpals of the feet. Got some cervical vertebrae, a few plates, and we've also got the lower jaw and this quite large spike, which gives the animal its name. So we can see from here, very different looking, a little bit shorter neck it seems. We have a full neck, so it's a little bit shorter than a lot of other stegosaurs. And you can see this big bulky head, very much fits like its closest relatives. Very, very big head, big beak, obviously for chowing down on plants and things. I really like the plates. The plates aren't quite so kind of straight like the Chunkingosaurus. These got like a little bit of mix. Some are rounded, some are a little bit more like curved. You see this one here is a little bit curved. The back ones across the hip are a little bit taller, and then they get a bit more rounded as you go back down the tail. And we can see, obviously, the body's been thinned out a little bit, made a little bit thinner, not quite big and bulky, and his legs look quite a bit longer. So we can see these long legs, and you can see you've got the proper feet, the 3 nails and the 2 that don't have one. So it's really, really cool that they've got the proper feet now. Much more rounder body, big round body, and longer legs. We can also see here, where they get the name again, Spinosaurus, you can see the base of it is so much bigger. It's like it has like a big flared base, and then it turns around and comes around like that. So I believe that's been greatly extended from the one in the original game. So it has very much bigger base to the spine, which looks really, really nice. It really fits what we know of the animal because it's got a big flared base and then kind of curves up. And then we've got the tail. Could probably be a little bit longer, but pretty good. We don't really have too much of the tail, and we've got the cool thagomizers that a lot of the stegosaurs have. So this is another really, really nice one. Love the pattern on this guy as well. I really love the stripes, especially on this guy because it's like the kind of black and then the tan colors and the yellow on the bottom there. Looks a really interesting combination. The extra colors, I think, really gives it a unique look because it has, of course, as I mentioned, and you need the extra colors pack to extra colors mod to have this in. So that's really, really cool. Definitely a big fan. This one's quite a nice one too. Definitely like these guys. So let them run off and do their thing. So next up, we've got another of our cool stegosaurs. One that's probably been very underrated. Of course, it was stuck in the deluxe edition, but we've got huangasaurus. So here's a nice stegosaur. Let's have a look at you guys. Let's give it a pause and let's see if we can find one. Oh, I like this one. I like the colors of this one. This one looks quite nice. So here is our Huangasaurus. Definitely some major changes here. You can see that the head's made quite a bit boxier. This is a really basal stegosaur, kind of in that Huangasauridae, kind of the namesake, I believe. Really, really big head there. Looks really, really nice, and a little bit of a shorter neck. So like the more like European and American stegosaurs are kind of the longer necks, like Miragaia and Stegosaurus, but these guys kind of still had those shorter necks. And plus, they're a little bit earlier in their evolution. And you can see you've got quite big arms for a stegosaur. You can see big, bulky arms and kind of like come up like a bowed a bit. And then you can also see they've got that shoulder spike. It has a wide base as well, but it's more hidden behind the skin. So yeah, much more rounded, like rectangular body, which I really quite like. And of course, as I mentioned, got the proper feet and everything. Big bulky head, all that. Really big shoulders, which is really cool. I love the textures on it as well. I love the patterns of the wrinkles and stuff like that, and the scales and things like that. In terms of not Thagomys, it's plates. It's got very rounded plates, like spiky plates, and goes back to rounded, as you can kind of see here, and then they get spiky again as you go back to the hips and through the tail. And then you can see they've got, for a stegosaur, they don't have very big thighs, but you can see they've got the big thighs there. They're bird hip dinosaurs, so they have the ischemia pubis kind of pushing down this way rather than kind of the boot going on like that. So it allows more fermentation. One thing that's weird, well, they did add, is you can see these kind of little osteoderms. Often they're kind of more reconstructed down here, but you can see Hawk has kind of put them up here, which makes sense, especially in the pattern there. And you see that long tail. This one actually, I think, is probably the best out of the lot. It's got that really, really long tail. The four pairs, the two pairs of thagomizers, and they've also got like a little club at the end of the tail there. Could be something sensory, or just be like almost like a tiger style, like just a bunch of vertebrae just hardened. I'm not saying they supported feathers, but just the hardened vertebrae. It really gives it a distinct look to other stegosaurs, and it makes probably like one of the most underrated stegosaurs in the game look so much more better and realistic and more interesting, because it just looks so much different than even like the against Spinosaurus, which is much taller and leaner, and then you have a Chunkingosaurus, which is like a lot more squat and long with a big bulky head. These guys are a little bit more different, distinct, which looks really, really cool. Definitely big fan. Hawk Owl has definitely done a wonderful job. So I'm gonna let you run off, do your thing, of course. So instead of with all these Asian stegosaurs, next up, we're going to have a look at an African stegosaur. Let them run off and do their thing. I don't want them blocking there. So let's have a look. We'll just let them speed off. We've got Kentrosaurus, everyone's favorite African stegosaur. And I'm really excited to get stuck into this one. So here's our Kentrosaurus. Looks rather wonderful, if I do say so myself. So you can see a lot of these later stegosaurs, they tend to have those longer necks, and they've got the obviously big eyes. A lot more of like a leaner beak and snout as well, longer necks, and you can see much more higher rounded backs going on. You can also see in the plates, they've got a little bit fewer plates, but they tend to be much taller, and especially as you get down the back, they kind of transition into the spikes or the thagomizers. You can see the proper feet as well, like all these stegosaurs have. Looks really, really wonderful. Often the spike is often reconstructed around the hip sometimes, but considering most stegosaurs are probably around the shoulder here, you can see quite a big base kind of attaches to the scapula there. And really, really round body. Also quite thick hips, of course. And you can kind of see that big, almost elephant-like feet down there with all the different bones and stuff going down that way. Looks really, really nice. Definitely a big fan. And you can see the transition. Unlike a lot of other stegosaurs, as you can see, kind of had the plates and then pairs of thagomizers. These guys have these quite large spikes going pretty much all through down their back there from the hips. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 pairs. And you can see these will probably be great for defense, or even like fighting each other, like sexual selection. They could probably fight each other with it, which I think is actually quite underrated. I think a lot of times people think, oh, it must have been for killing other animals, but often a lot of the really weird structures in nature are from sexual selection, like a peacock's antlers. Even though they can be used for defense, if they were for defense, they would keep them all year round. So they clearly really use them for sexual display. So I think that's kind of really interesting how people think jump first thing is it needs to kill other things. But actually, it's most of the time just wants to get ladies, because animals are desperate. They're simps, of course. But yeah, really, really cool. Love this animal. Forgive that tirade. Yeah, I really like the Kentrosaurus. Hawkell has really done a wonderful job giving us paleo-accurate animals, especially of animals that are kind of underrated. You know, you get dozens of T-Rex paleo-edits and other cool carnivores, but some of the underrated animals, they do deserve some love, and I think there's some of the best ones yet. I really, really love all these paleo-edits. So that's our last single animal. We've got Huangasaurus, but Huangasaurus has got 2 species, which is really, really cool. We just need them run off, of course. So next up, we've got the first species is Monologosaurus Orodromea, which is quite interesting. So let's release. So here we have our first species. I think these two just happen to be kind of the same, but this is Urosaurus orosensis, I believe you say that. So this is a stegosaur that was kind of found in the El Horno Formation in Inner Mongolia and was found in 1988. So the specimen was described as the Urosaurus orodromeus because it was a similar age to the original species that we'll get into, and it has quite a similar anatomy. So it's actually quite well known. We have a nearly complete torso with some cervical vertebrae and all 11 dorsal vertebrae, and a complete sacrum and right ilium, and the first 5 caudals, and also additional dorsal vertebrae and plate were referred to this taxon as when it was named. And in 2014, it was often considered a new species, Wurusaurus mongoliensis, from vertebrae and pelvic material, but that turned out to be a nomenubium, and was formerly described as Stegosaurus, I believe you say that, Stegosaurus in 2018, but obviously that didn't stick. This is what we have of Orodromeus now. It's quite a bit smaller than Homei, if you can say that. So these guys got to about 5 meters long and about 1.2 tons, so a little over a ton. They had a relatively long neck and short pelvis, with its spines, neural spines being shorter. So you can kind of see how very much this looks to Stegosaurus, because Wurusaurus is often considered a close relative of Stegosaurus, like their sister taxon, and even sometimes people will lump them within Stegosaurus. But most likely they are their own kind of genus. But you can see this one's very Stegosaur-like, especially if you look at things like Sophie. These guys got quite a long neck, especially quite a long tail, and these really, really large broad plates that look very Stegosaur-like. The original Wurusaurus plates, they kind of have the little divots there. They're not considered accurate because they're broken. But yeah, really, really cool. And I really like these guys. I think they're cool. And there's a shoulder spike that has a single spike has been seen that's been potentially positioned on the shoulder, but most likely they didn't have that because a lot of those later stegosaurs didn't have the shoulder thecomyza. So yeah, really, really nice. In terms of Orodromeus, looks pretty spot on. And it's actually also quite late for a stegosaur, since we do have stegosaurs from the Weldon group, and then we have Wurusaurus from Asia, so it seems like stegosaurs may have definitely made it into the later Cretaceous, or early Cretaceous, not just dying out at the end of the Jurassic. But yeah, really, really cool. So that is our Orodromus, and you can see the kind of difference as we point to the next species. So you can see a really wonderful guy. It just looks like a Stegosaurus. So next up, last but not least, we've got the other species of Rurosaurus. We've got Rurosaurus Homei, or Honhei, I believe you say that. And you can also see this one's also very Stegosaur. Really, really cool. So this is Homei. So this is a type species that was discovered in 1973, found in Juzhang in western China, and its name comes from the Wuru's formation, so Wurusaurus. Where it was discovered, there was like a bunch of new material, and there was a skullless fragmentary fossil and a paratype, with the holotype material having a mostly complete pelvis and a sacrum, but lacking the ischium, caudal vertebrae, scapulocoracord, humerus, and pharynx, along with 2 dermal plates, which were broken. And these caudal vertebrae, as well as tail partial on of a second individual, kind of refer to this guy. So in contrast, these guys were a little bit bigger. So Homei was a bit broader and got to about 7 meters long, while Orodromeus got about 5 meters, so a little bit bigger and about 4 metric tons. So a little bit smaller than Stegosaurus itself, but like in that same kind of range. Kind of one of the bigger ones. And only a few scattered bones had been found. And then the dorsal plates were first thought to be much rounder and flatter, which you can probably see in the original Jurassic Park, Jurassic World Evolution 2 kind of Wurusaurus, which kind of is very rounded like that. Its more traditional plates look like this, so it looks more traditional, like the other stegosaurs, the big round plates. Especially you can see big, wide, and round. Probably still quite a bit rounder than a lot of stegosaurs, but you can see it had the tip, not just like round kind of um, plates, kind of like you see in a lot of older depictions. But that's what it was first thought. But it was actually shown this was illusion caused by the brachids. And it also had a pelvis where the front of the ilia actually strongly flared outwards, and it had a very broad belly, so that's probably what made it quite robust. And the neural spines at the tail base were actually quite tall, so you can kind of see where we get that from. You can see all the correct anatomy, proper feet and everything. Like a stegosaur, really, really long neck, much more like big thighs as well. So it looks much more like a traditional stegosaur. As you think of those Stegosaurus and things like that. Looks really, really nice. I'm definitely a big fan. So, you can see these guys were adapted to probably eating low vegetation and would be like, even a little bit of browsing. As you can see, they've got quite long necks. And yeah, really, really cool animals with these four thagomizers, very like Stegosaurus, which is his closest relative. Probably used for both sexual selection and killing each other and things like that. You know what all people think that spiky things are used for. But anyway, looks really, really nice. Definitely a big fan of this one. So this is the last animal of the Stegosaur cosmetic pack. Again, I didn't mention the two cosmetics for the Stegosaurus because I already covered those. Technically, they just were included in this pack along with the other Stegosaurs. So that's all the Stegosaurs from this pack. Remember, you also need the expanded colors pack or mod. Remember that as well for it to work. But yeah, all done by HockL1215, and I always look forward to Hock mods, especially like the feathered cosmetic one he made, the Nothosaurus. There's all sorts of really good mods that Hock has made, so definitely really, really awesome. Definitely recommend this one. But yeah, we're gonna let them go off and do their own thing. So we're over halfway now. Hopefully it's a bit of a shorter episode, but that's okay. So next up, we've got an OG Bear edit. Who doesn't love OG Bear? We have got by OG Bear, we've got a Monologosaurus. So we're going to cover this guy. We can see the major changes because we always got to start with the face. But you can see some of the major changes. Let me choose you. You look a little bit nicer. We can see some changes here. As you can see, they have a really, really big nasal area here, like really, really wide. And if you see Walking with Dinosaurs, if you reconstruct it as being booming, but they definitely have that really, really big kind of crest there, and it probably had a lot of area in the nasal for breathing, potentially to help maybe keep it a little bit warmer if it was a little bit cool at the time. I doubt it was that cool, but would probably help with that. Also, potentially for sexual signaling and things like that. Really, really interesting big crest on the nose here. That's kind of the most obvious, and has been obviously changed to be more realistic in that regard. Also, big beak here, which is also quite interesting. And you can see that big head there with those big eyes, and actually quite a long neck compared to a lot of other iguanodons. So this is a really early iguanodons related to kind of like the really early, most basal, most ones. And that's because obviously in Australia, a lot of ancient lineages actually managed to survive, including things like Coolosuchus, a lot of really basal ankylosaurs like Pan Ankylosauria and Monologosaurus, and really interesting in that regard. Some other changes we can see here, that body has also been a little bit more rounded. In the original game, they were quadrupedal, but we know that they were bipedal. You can see the hands here. You can also see the hands are actually still wrong because we actually have from the hands, they probably would have had much more. They wouldn't have the thumb spikes like later iguanodons would have had. So the hands are still technically wrong. They probably would have had 4 or 5 really, really small fingers. The top 3 would have been the biggest ones, and then 4 and 5 would have been quite small. Very similar to things like Camptosaurus and things in that regard. So that's something that needs to be edited there to be correct. But they wouldn't have had the kind of thumb claw and the thumbs, like the pinky and the thumb claw that later iguanodons, like Iguanodon itself, would have had. But anyway, we can move on. We can see those bigger legs, big thighs, obviously carrying its weight. And they're quite big animals. Like like 6 or 7 meters long. I've been next to a skeleton of one, definitely a very big animal, and then you can see that longer tail. You can see quite a bit longer, but you can see most changes are definitely in that head there, and I love seeing that profile. It really gives it a distinct look, and I love that long tail. I know I've said this a few times, but Jurassic World often makes their dinosaurs' tails too short. So it's nice to see them greatly extended and give it a lot nicer profile. Definitely a big fan of this Mutabara edit. I would say just change the hands. Just shrink them down a bit, get rid of the thumb, spike, and pinky, and she would be right. So yeah, really, really awesome OGB Paleo edit. And I think some new skins as well. Looks really, really nice. Definitely a big fan. So I'm going to let them run off and do their thing. So next up, we have got by Jornio, or have you said it, Joriro? We've got Monolophosaurus, everyone's favorite big bad carnivore. Let's see if we can get a good look at one of you guys, even though you're kind of being annoying and running around. Anyway, we'll have a look at you. So we can see definitely it's been bulked up a bit. Monolophosaurus definitely has a big, bulky head. As we can kind of see there, it's related to things like Dilophosaurus, so most reconstructions, I believe, probably made it a little bit bulkier. You're really, really awesome. I love that crest there. And you can see the crest has probably got a little bit of holes there, so it potentially supported a cask very similar to like Cassarus or even Dilophosaurus. And it seems to manage to get rid of that weird four-nostril thing the original Camp Cretaceous Monolophosaurus had going on, but looks okay in that regard. Some big lips, you know. I love lips on my dinosaurs, love fleshy dinosaurs. Definitely made the neck a bit thicker as well, and added a bit of a dewlap. Extended the arms, made them a little bit bigger and more powerful. You can kind of see that there. Looks nice. Definitely given a bit of a tummy tuck. You gotta say you need to put the issue probably a little bit back as well. Definitely big round body, very similar to like a lot of more basal tetraneurons. You can also see longer legs going on there, big bulky legs, and you can see that longer tail. As I keep mentioning, Jurassic World kind of makes their dinosaurs' tails too short, and it probably brings it to be about right. So yeah, definitely a more minimal paleo edit, but what it changes, it makes it look a lot more bulky and more realistic. You know, have the proper amount of tissue, not like a lean, mean monster, movie monster like Jurassic World always does. But yeah, really nice. Definitely a big fan of that. So we're gonna let them run off and do their thing. And last but certainly not least, we have got Pickle, who loves Pickle, who's redone one of his paleo edits. As we'll get into there, we've got Mosasaurus. Let's see if we can get you in a nice clear area. There we are. Put you like that. Really, really beautiful. Definitely a big fan of this guy. So, as we can see here, there's been a couple major changes. We can see some change to the face here, obviously given much more varanid anatomy. So obviously varanids and like lizards like that, like monitor lizards, things like that, they have very big lips. Not quite like mammal lips, but just lots of flesh, and you can kind of see that represented here. You can also see some changes there. You can see the kind of nostrils are kind of like halfway down here. Really, really big and bulky, but you can see the major change from the Jurassic World one and from the last Paleo edit is there's no osteoderms. So the original Jurassic Park or Jurassic World one had all these big osteoderms on it, which we know from pretty extensive soft tissue remains from a lot of different mosasaurs. They actually didn't have. So mosasaurs would have most likely had lots of like really small scales, and if you looked at them from a distance, remember this is like a 10 to 12 meter long animal. It probably would have looked very smooth from a distance, but if you looked up close to them, it had scales very similar to a lot of snakes, like keeled scales and very small, like rhomboid scales that have gone down the body. Wouldn't have been noticeable if you looked at them from a distance, but if you looked up close, you'd probably notice them. Gives it like a smooth appearance. So those osteoderms are gone. You can kind of see that there. The big head obviously changes there. Really looks really, really nice. You can see textures changed. The texture's still not quite right, but definitely much better. You can see some other changes, definitely bigger flippers to make it look a little bit nicer. And the biggest one to the tail as well. We know from impressions from animals such as Platycarpus and things like that, they would have had... originally, mosasaurs were kind of depicted as long eel-like tails, but from that kind of specimens like Platycarpus, it gives us a idea of how they were in life. They would have very much had like a keeled shape, so very you'd have this lobe up here and then the tail would go down, very similar to things like sharks and ichthyosaurs. And that gives us another great example of convergent evolution, so animals that are not related finding the same kind of solution to the problem. So a lot of animals kind of evolved that lobe to look fin, so they could swim around more effectively through the water. And even since these guys, because obviously being big predators, would need to do that. But yeah, really, really nice. I love this Mosasaurus. Definitely big and round and big heads, because Mosasaurus hoffmanni, which is probably the one this based off, was kind of one of the largest mosasaur, probably up to like 10 to 12 meters in length, probably even a bit bigger than that. Considering some remains, size estimates with dinosaurs sometimes and prehistoric animals, not always the right one. But yeah, really, really love this. Really love how he came out. Definitely a big fan of this guy. But yeah, let's see if I can get a better look. Let's have a look at you just for a little bit and admire. But yeah, Pickle's always done a wonderful job. I'd love to see Pickle or someone try to give this a nicer skin. Make it more like the Prehistoric Planet one or something, because I like that skin. But as a paleo edit, this is pretty much spot on. I really like this. So, yeah. This is definitely a bit of a shorter episode, but nothing wrong with that. So, yeah. I really hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to hit the little bell icon to get notified about anything. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.